Welcome back from the break. You're watching NewsX. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. A Jeju Air flight from Bangkok to South Korea has met with a tragic end. The plane with 181 passengers on board burst into flames after skidding off the runway and hitting a concrete wall. Footage of the crash showed the plane skidding across the airstrip at high speed, apparently with its landing gear still closed. It then was dragged on its belly before overrunning the runway and colliding head-on with a concrete wall on the outskirts of the facility. The impact triggered an explosion that was followed by thick fumes of black smoke and flames billowing from the plane. Only the tail end remained intact. Soon after the crash, emergency services, including fire brigades, were promptly rushed to the spot. Nearly 1,600 personnel were deployed to assist in recovery efforts. However, despite efforts to douse the fire, passengers had little chance of survival. This is because the passengers were ejected from the aircraft as soon as it collided with the barrier. In the end, emergency responders managed to rescue 2 people, including an air steward, leaving 179 of 181 passengers dead. Preliminary reports indicate the landing gear malfunctioned and failed to deploy, potentially due to a bird strike. The air traffic control at Muan Airport has issued a bird strike warning to the plane at 9:03 a.m. local time. However, the plane proceeded with a belly landing and was up in flames within 3 minutes of the warning. Well, after the tragedy, it was not immediately clear why the Boeing 737-800 jet could not use the multiple fail-safes built into modern aircrafts. Any scenario to execute a gear-up landing requires advanced preparation, from spreading foam on the runway to prior deployment of firefighters and paramedics. Firefighters were not in position near the runway when the plane touched down, and its trajectory showed the jet did not circle before attempting a belly landing. This maneuver is considered something of a last-ditch attempt, and planes hit by technical malfunctions typically circle the airport as the pilots try to work out a solution, also to burn fuel. So could this tragedy have been avoided? What are the emergency protocols in place to address such situations? And of course, how can situations like this be addressed? These are all big questions that we are going to throw to our panel. Joining us live now is Wing Commander S. Sudhakaran, former Indian Air Force officer. Group Captain UK Devnath, defense expert, is joining us live. Major General Dr. S. Asthana is also live with us, former DG Infantry. Surjit Panesar, aviation expert, is also joining us live on the broadcast. Let me begin with you first, Surjit Panesar, on what you make of this terrible tragedy that has occurred in South Korea. What do you believe went wrong?
Well, at the outside, we are sorry to know about the serious accident. We pray to God to give peace to the departed souls and courage for the bereaved family to bear the loss. Now, discussing about this crash, belly landing, the pilot must have known much earlier that the gears are not coming down. There are proper checklists by the manufacturer which you go through it. He should have gone around, and because he must be carrying a lot of fuel for the alternate airport also in case of bad weather, for diversion. So all the fuel must be heavy fuel in the tank. He should have gone around, carried a missed approach, flown over the airport, and tried to spend the fuel, reduce the fuel level, and then land with a minimum weight. And also, he should land with a minimum speed. If the landing speed 149, he could have come down to 130, 120, and he could have placed the aircraft very slowly on the runway. It seemed he landed very fast, and he couldn't. When the wheels are not down, he could not stop it. Went straight and hit the wall. And these type of accident can be avoided, but the pilot has to use his checklist, which is a Bible. All the manufacturers, they give you checklist for all types of emergency, and pilots are trained for all these type of emergencies. I only know the investigation where we come to know about the cockpit voice recorder, what the talks took place before crash. Then only we can come out with a right decision why it happened. But in my opinion, the pilot should have gone around and flown to reduce the fuel level so that he can land with a minimum weight. And this crash would have avoided, even the aircraft would have been saved, and the lives of passengers would have also been saved, because he was carrying fuel for alternate airport also by hitting the wall. And another thing, in a belly landing, you must shut down both the engine before touchdown. If you don't shut down, the engines break and the fuel lines break, and with that, the fire takes place. No, the checklist says that. I do not know why the checklist was not followed. I hope if we had followed the checklist, we could have saved the lives of passengers and even the life of aircraft also. Proper checklists are given. Checklist is the Bible for a pilot to land in any emergency situation. Engine failure, Fire on board, fire on engine, pressurization failure. The checklist is the Bible. You go to the checklist, and it should have gone around and flown for fuel 1 hour to reduce the fuel level so the landing weight is reduced. The more is the landing weight, the higher has to be the landing speed. If it has spent some fuel, if it has landed low speed, he could have saved the precious life of so many passengers.
Yes, absolutely. Let me quickly join Wing Commander Sudhakaran. Wing Commander Sudhakaran, it has been a very terrible December in terms of aviation across the world. Now, of course, this tragedy in South Korea with this Jeju Air flight. What do you make of what really happened and how this crash occurred?
It only goes on to show the uncertainty of life, isn't it? We take life for granted so often. We tend to believe that everything will be normal, come what may. We take everything so lightly. And at this moment, while yes, we've had two major tragedies, we also have to understand the world is at war. We're almost at the brink of the Third World War. We've been fighting on all corners. We as human beings have been more irresponsible this year than ever we have been in the last 25 odd years. Having said that, while I fully concur with my previous panelists who had said that it is very important that we expend the fuel that is there before we attempt to do something like this, I wouldn't for once believe that the pilot didn't think of it, but then strange are the ways, because when they get into panic, they do all kinds of weird things. I really don't know what happened in the cockpit. It is very easy for us to pass a judgment. I don't know under what circumstances he opted to land. Was it the best ever decision that he thought it could? Under what circumstances? All this would come out of a court of inquiry. As a responsible Air Force officer, I would refrain from speculation and commenting and adversely commenting on the competence of that pilot, because obviously, he must have put in enough number of flying hours for him to have understood all these basic things. I am not a pilot. I though served in the Air Force, but still, my heart goes out because we've lost 181 lives or so. Having said that, there are safeties in place. If you look at the number of aircrafts that go on the skies, this is a 0.001% aberration, considering the number of flying hours that goes every day, day in and day out. And so many, in fact, yesterday night I landed at 3 o'clock. I had a very turbulent flight yesterday night. 3-4 times the pilot did announce warning. And so, it could have been my flight as well. But then we all come back homes, and then we don't hesitate to take our next flight, book our next tickets. That's the uncertainty of life. It keeps happening. Should it have happened, we should have found better strategies, technologies. But now, as we are entering into an era led by the technology of AI, we will soon get advanced techniques wherein probably some kind of machines will take over, and even if a pilot commits some kind of an error, we'll be in real time able to advise the best course of action. But that's for the future. But today, all that I can do is pay my condolences to the bereaved families, and hope that the souls rest in peace. That's all I've got to say.
Yes, let me in fact quickly then draw in to this discussion for his perspective, Group Captain Devnath as well. Group Captain Devnath, what went wrong according to you? What was the reason you believe this crash took place prima facie, looking at the details available?
Uday, I will go back to my aviation days. I was a fighter pilot, few MiG-23. I was in IAF for 34 years. Many such accidents I have seen. Right now, details are yet to come out. Good thing is that cockpit voice recorder, black box, and flight data recorders have been found out, recovered, and they will be analyzed very soon. What appears that air traffic controller had warned the pilot about presence of a large flock of birds just 3 minutes before the landing. Now, on rarest of rare occasion, it happens that one odd bird, say in India, we see big birds flying around. Rarest of the rare occasion, the bird may get ingested in the engine. In that case, what happens? The aircraft is moving forward at that time at a relatively high speed. That impact damages the internal structure of the engine. Similarly, the engine itself is rotating the stator blade, the compressor blades, the rotor blades, they are rotating at a very high RPM, thousands of RPM per minute. Because of the mass of the bird, invariably a heavy bird will weigh about 1.5 kg to 2.5 kg. When it is ingested in the engine, the rotor blades, the compressor blades, they will get damaged. So combined effect is two things may happen. If you are lucky, the engine may continue to run, but at a lesser power, lesser RPM. In extreme cases, the engine may shut down totally. What appears to me now here in this case that because the pilot before landing he announced what is in aviation jargon we say Mayday announcement. A typical Mayday announcement goes like this: Mayday, 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 engine on fire. So that air traffic controller, the radar controller, and all the airfield safety operators can quickly get into action mode. Now, in this case, to appears to me that the engine continued to run but with less power. Now, that also gives an answer that why undercarriage was not deployed. Uh, it is quite possible that since engine power was very less, so pilot decided to reduce the drag on the aircraft, the air resistant on the aircraft, by not lowering his undercarriage. It happens sometimes because once you extend the undercarriage, it comes down, but the drag on the aircraft increases tremendously, air resistance. For that, you have to compensate by increasing your engine power. In this case, to me, prima facie, it appears that probably the engine power was so less that pilot decided not to lower the undercarriage and carry out and what we call belly landing. Now, also belly landing difficulties when you touch down, the brakes are not available to the pilot because the pilot brakes are in the wheels, in the wheel bay, in the wheels. So, since undercarriage has not been extended, brakes are not available. The aircraft skids on the runway, and that is the only resistance, the skidding force, the skidding resistance which decelerates the aircraft. In this case, it also appears that the pilot apparently continued rightly so straight on the runway, but it finally could not reduce its speed to say zero. What happens once you touch down the aircraft speed quickly reduces below 100 knot, below 50 knot. But in this case, it appears that at it, he was still going ahead with, because it is uncontrolled skidding forward. At a 30-40 knots, he collided with the what is called airfield perimetry boundary. There is a wall about 8 to 10 feet high. That impact broke the aircraft and aircraft caught fire. Yes, Uday?
Okay, let me in fact quickly also draw in for his perspective on this big story. Once again, Shashi Asthana, Major General Asthana, of course, I'd like you to comment on this crash, what you believe led to it, but also now, raising questions on how perhaps it could have been handled better. Do you believe there is a hint of pilot error as well, apart from, of course, the bird hit that the local ATC has said happened?
See, the technological aspects have been brought out by the other panelists. I will only talk of, firstly, obviously, the condolences to all those who have died, and we certainly feel very sorry for them. This has been a bad week for flyers. Not only this aircraft, there was also a case, although they were slightly lucky, the KLM plane, Boeing 737, that also skids skidded on the on the runway just about 2 days back. There also the case was hydraulic failure, and the aircraft was Boeing 737, same case. And then there was a Air Canada flight. There also there was a landing gear failure, and all this has happened this week, in last 2 3 days only. And then there was that was in Halifax Airport. Now there are two major reasons. Whatever they have discussed, I can tell you that way. That one is either the human error or the system failure or some other issue, like the case of the Azerbaijan flight, where it has been hit by an external object. Now, in all these cases, you will find that the reasons could be different. There is no doubt. But something which is common in all these is that there are very few companies which are making aircraft. The systems are facing failure, and the quality control comes under question. There have been certain cases where some of these companies who are making these aircrafts, they did grounded some of the versions of their aircraft which have been supplied elsewhere. So maybe because of monopoly, the quality control is perhaps becoming a casualty, because not very many competitors came up all over the world to make such aircrafts. And generally, we are buying from either the American companies or the British company. These are the aircraft which are flying by and large in the entire world. Also, if you see the probability wise, last 2 3 years, generally the figures of the accident has been about 37, 38 or so in a year, which is minuscule as compared to the number of aircraft which fly. And therefore, the confidence still remains intact. Yes, there has been an accident, there is no doubt about it. Can we handle your question? Can we handle the emergency better? Certainly, we could have had, because as was brought out by the other panelists, maybe that these kinds of emergencies, now that when the accident doesn't take place for very long time, the systems and the procedures to handle such emergencies, they also become little lax, and therefore they are not in that state of readiness till an accident occurs. So maybe that there could be some element of improvement there. I'm sure there will be inquiries, and these inquiries will point out as to what all happened and where happened, and could it have been handled better, or was there a laxity as far as the other aspect is concerned. But in this case, I think there was hardly any chance for people to be rescued, because of the, as was brought out, because of the fuel and the fire, the way it broke off. And if you recall, like even in the case of 9/11, the pilot, when he stuck to that building, he ensured that the fuel is so much, and it was more, the biggest damage was not because of the strike, but because of the fuel, which caused the damage in case of 9/11. So fuel becomes important, and that is where perhaps all the drills which all these experienced panelists were talking may hold some value. Back to you, Uday.
Okay, let me in fact go back across to Surjit Panesar. Surjit Panesar, do you believe now that there are lessons to be learned from this particular tragedy? What lessons can be drawn from how the final moments unfolded?
Yes,
And what sort of inquiry would you now want this particular airline and this particular manufacturer of this aircraft to now call for?
Let me tell you, the main manufacturer, Boeing and Airbus industry, they carry out all types of emergency before releasing the aircraft for commercial flights. They release a checklist which gives the pilot how to react to the checklist. In olden days, we used to have a booklet. We have to go open the booklet in case of action. Today, there's a CRT in front of the cockpit, especially in the Boeing 737-800. The checklist comes right in front of him. The pilot has to take action on the checklist. When the belly landing is there, aircraft must be having a lot of fuel for the alternate airport. He has to burn that fuel to reduce the landing weight, so the landing speed comes down. By burning the fuel, he could have carried a missed approach, burned the fuel, come back for landing at a lower speed. He could have, if the landing speed 140 knots, 130, he could have made landed 120 knots also. By that way, even the life of passenger and aircraft could have also been saved. We have 2-3 landing, belly landing in India also, with a minor damage to the aircraft, and there was no casualty to the passengers. It is only why the pilot has landed with high speed and then landed with gear up, and with gear up he could not stop the aircraft. He must be landing with a very high speed because his landing weight must be very high. All the pilots are trained on simulators with all types of emergency, like landing gear, pressure failure, electricity failure, engine fire, cockpit fire, cabin fire. They are given proper training, extensive training. In my opinion, the training should be enhanced more effectively, especially after the recommendation of this investigation team. They will come out what action they should have taken after read out the cockpit voice recorder and digital flight data recorder, because there is always a chance of improvement on the incident after having an extensive investigation. Why the pilots did that? There could be human error. Why the pilots acted like that? They did not go around. They could have carried. In the meantime, while they go around to burn more fuel, the ATC would have got enough time to put a foam on the runway to give the braking effect. So all those things were not done, you see, in time, and pilot wanted to land. What is the urgency in belly landing? I do not understand that. I have flown Falcon Friendship. There, the gear, if gear doesn't go, it's a very difficult process. You have to go to the cabin, half of the cabin in the wall, there's a hole, you have to put a handle in there, then move the handle for the gear down. It takes a lot of time. But today, if the gear has not come, doesn't matter, you could do the belly landing. There are process for gear. They are taught in the simulator, all these type of landing. It's a very sad state. Only we have to wait for the investigation, what they have found out, and the investigation team will definitely give recommendation to stop the recurrence of these incidents in future. It's a very sad thing, and I pray to God to give peace to the departed soul and courage to the family.
Okay, Wing Commander Sudhakaran, last word to you.
Yes.
Given the present design of aircrafts and that the fact that birds cannot be wished away from the skies, they are the first claimants to the skies. We have to be a bit more careful. We will have to get our early warning in place. We will have to ensure that we take more adequate precautions. And of course, we can practice better safety methodologies while enforcing belly landing, because belly landing is an uncontrolled landing. Mind you, most of the times you don't have the aircraft landing gears in place, which means the brakes are going to be mostly ineffective. It is going to be effective only if the wheels are going to be controlled by a system that can actually draw it back. The moment you talk about a belly landing scenario, there are technically no brakes. You are pretty much dependent on the flaps, the control surfaces, to create a maximal drag in the air so that the aircraft slows down. But even in this case, it appears that it has overshot the runway, gone and hit the wall. There was so much that could be done. We can keep talking about it. We may look very intelligent, comment on all these things, but
all right. We've run out of time. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us on this discussion. Let's slip into a short break.